Emma Clark stepped into Heathrow Airport on a grey Tuesday morning. Rain tapped against the massive windows as she clutched her leather briefcase tightly. Her heart beat a little faster today. This wasn't just another financial review. The $3.2 billion relief pipeline for the airport needed careful checking, and as a senior Treasury Department investigator, Emma was the best person for the job. She spotted her colleagues, James and Peter, walking easily through security. They waved at her as they continued forward. Emma nodded back, her face a careful mask of professionalism. Unlike them, however, she found herself directed to a separate line. "Step this way, please," said a guard with cold eyes. Emma showed her government credentials, the official Treasury Department badge hanging around her neck. The guard barely glanced at it. "I'll need additional identification," he said firmly. Emma kept her voice level. "This is a standard government ID badge. My colleagues just passed through with the same credentials." "Security protocols," the guard replied without meeting her eyes. Emma noticed how his gaze slid past her, how his hand hovered near his radio, as if she might cause trouble. She had felt this before, the slight tightening in her chest. The slow burn of anger kept carefully controlled. Growing up in Oxfordshire as part of one of only 3 black families in their village had taught her much about keeping calm in the face of prejudice. Emma handed over her passport and driver's license. The guard took an unusually long time checking them, making several calls while Emma waited. Around her, other travelers, mostly white, moved through security with ease. Finally cleared, Emma collected her belongings and headed toward the administrative offices. The airport's polished floors reflected the fluorescent lights overhead. Signs directed passengers to various terminals, but Emma followed the restricted access path toward the management wing. At the reception desk, a young woman with blonde hair looked up with surprise. "Oh, you're the Treasury investigator?" "Yes, Emma Clark," she said, extending her hand. "I believe Director Blackwood is expecting me." The receptionist, whose nameplate read Olivia, made a quick call. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but Emma caught fragments. "She's here, yes, not what we... Should I..." After an uncomfortable wait, Emma was led down a corridor to meet Airport Director Thomas Blackwood. He was a tall man with thinning grey hair and an expensive suit. His handshake was brief and cool. "Miss Clark," he said, looking her up and down with barely hidden surprise. "We weren't expecting someone like you." Emma met his gaze steadily. "Someone like me, Director Blackwood." He recovered quickly. "Someone so young. The Treasury usually sends their more seasoned investigators." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Well, the financial review shouldn't take long. Our books are spotless." Instead of the promised conference room with proper facilities, Emma was shown to a tiny office at the end of a dimly lit hallway. The room had no windows and smelled faintly of cleaning products. A small desk with an outdated computer occupied most of the space. "You can work here," said Blackwood. "Olivia will bring the files you requested, though I must say we have other priorities today than entertaining an unnecessary audit." As he turned to leave, Emma caught sight of a man in an expensive suit waiting outside. She heard Blackwood mutter to him, "Probably just a diversity hire who doesn't understand airport finances." The door closed behind them, but their laughter carried through the thin walls. Emma sat down slowly, placing her briefcase on the desk. She felt the familiar weight of other people's assumptions settling on her shoulders. She had graduated top of her class at Oxford. She had worked her way up through the Treasury Department on merit, handling complex financial investigations that had saved taxpayers millions. Yet here she was, being dismissed before she'd even begun. She took out her laptop, powers of authorization, and the preliminary reports her team had assembled. The data already showed strange patterns in how the airport had used its relief funds, patterns that didn't align with their reported staff retention rates. Emma opened her laptop and began to work, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed secure Treasury systems. A small smile played on her lips despite everything. Director Blackwood and his team had made a serious mistake today. They had judged her by the color of her skin and not by her abilities. They had no idea who they were dealing with. And by the time they realized, it would be too late to hide whatever they were covering up in those spotless books. The fluorescent lights flickered in the small windowless office as Emma rubbed her tired eyes. The airport had fallen quiet hours ago. Most staff had gone home, but Emma stayed, her fingers tapping steadily on her keyboard. Only the occasional distant sound of cleaning equipment broke the silence. Emma glanced at her watch. Nearly midnight. She had been working for 14 hours straight, diving deeper into the financial maze of Heathrow Airport's pandemic relief funds. £3.2 billion in government relief funds, she muttered, scrolling through another spreadsheet. And somehow staff are still being made redundant left and right? Something didn't add up. The numbers on her screen showed large sums marked for worker retention programs and COVID safety implementations, but the airport had laid off hundreds of workers in recent months. Emma had already spoken with security guards, baggage handlers, and cleaning staff who had lost their jobs despite the government money meant to protect them. Emma clicked through to another file and frowned. The executive wing of the airport had undergone a complete renovation last quarter. New furniture, marble flooring, and state-of-the-art technology systems. The price tag made her eyes widen. $2.4 million for essential facility upgrades. She tried to access the detailed breakdown of executive compensation, but found herself blocked. A red message flashed on her screen. Access denied, authorization level insufficient. That's odd, Emma whispered to herself. Her Treasury Department clearance should have granted her access to all financial records. Someone had deliberately locked her out. Emma made notes of the discrepancies she'd found so far. The pattern was becoming clear, money flowing away from its intended recipients and toward executive benefits. She would need more evidence, though. Director Blackwood and his team would fight back hard once she made her accusations formal. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Emma tensed. Who would be here this late? The door opened slightly, and a young woman with curly brown hair and worried eyes peeked in. She looked nervously over her shoulder before slipping inside and closing the door quietly behind her. "Hello," she said in a hushed voice. "You're the Treasury investigator, right?" "I'm Lucy. Lucy Thompson. I work in accounting." Emma nodded cautiously. "Yes, I'm Emma Clark. Is everything all right?" Lucy wrung her hands. "No, nothing's all right here. What they're doing, it's not right." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small blue flash drive. Her hand trembled slightly as she placed it on the desk. "This shows everything. The real numbers. The records they don't want you to see." Emma looked at the flash drive but didn't touch it. "Why are you helping me? You could lose your job for this." Lucy's eyes welled with tears. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. "My father worked here for 30 years. 30 years of perfect service. He was a maintenance supervisor, never missed a day." Her voice cracked. "They let him go 3 months ago, said it was necessary COVID cuts. No warning, just a small severance package and thanks for your service." A tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. "That same week, I processed paperwork for Director Blackwood's bonus. £500,000, and he wasn't the only one. All the top directors got massive payouts while claiming they needed to cut staff to survive." Emma felt a wave of anger rising inside her. This was why she had joined the Treasury Department, to prevent exactly this kind of abuse. "I'm sorry about your father," Emma said softly. Lucy wiped her eyes. "He's 62, too young to retire, too old to find new work easily. He's been applying everywhere, but nothing yet." She gestured to the flash drive. "Everything's there. The real accounting, the secret accounts, the executive bonuses, the shell companies they created to funnel money through. They think they're clever, but I've been watching." "This is very brave of you," Emma said. "I'm terrified," Lucy admitted, "but I couldn't stay silent anymore." She glanced nervously at the door. "I should go before someone sees me here. They've been watching you closely." As Lucy slipped out, Emma stared at the flash drive. She knew the risk Lucy had taken. Whistleblowers often faced harsh consequences, especially when powerful people were involved. Emma picked up the drive and carefully inserted it into her laptop. Folders appeared on her screen, hundreds of documents, spreadsheets, and emails that painted a clear picture of systematic fraud. Looking at the evidence, Emma realized this wasn't just about numbers anymore. This was about people like Lucy's father, about families struggling while executives enriched themselves with money meant to protect jobs, about betrayal of public trust during a national crisis. She wasn't just reviewing financial records anymore. She was fighting for people's livelihoods, and she would make sure justice was served, no matter how powerful her opponents might be. The next morning, Emma arrived at the airport's main administrative building. She wore her most professional navy blue suit and carried a folder of evidence. Her heart beat fast, but her face showed nothing but calm confidence. She had spent hours preparing her presentation and knew every number by heart. The boardroom was large and cold. 12 people sat around a shiny wooden table. Director Blackwood sat at the head, with 5 other board members on each side. Emma noticed they were all white men in expensive suits. They watched her with blank faces as she set up her laptop. "Good morning," Emma said politely. "Thank you for meeting with me today. I'd like to present my preliminary findings regarding the airport's use of government relief funds." Director Blackwood checked his watch. "We've given you 30 minutes, Ms. Clark. Please be brief." Emma connected her laptop to the projector. The first slide showed a simple chart comparing staff numbers before and after the relief funds were received. As you can see, despite receiving $3.2 billion specifically earmarked for worker retention, this airport has reduced staff by nearly 25% in the past year, Emma began. "That's over 800 employees who lost their jobs." She clicked to the next slide showing financial flows. Meanwhile, executive compensation increased by 47%, and $2.4 million was spent on office renovations for the executive wing. The room grew uncomfortably silent. Emma continued, showing more charts and evidence of money being moved between accounts. "I've also found evidence of funds being diverted through 3 shell companies that appear to be controlled by members of this board," she said, displaying the connections on screen. Director Blackwood's face turned red. He stood up suddenly, interrupting her presentation. "These allegations are completely absurd," he said, his voice rising. "You clearly don't understand standard accounting practices for an operation of this size and complexity." He looked around at the other board members for support. "Perhaps we should arrange for someone more experienced to assist you." William Fletcher, the oldest board member with thick white hair, leaned forward. "Young lady, we've been running this airport for decades. I suggest you tread very carefully with these wild accusations." Emma kept her voice steady. "These aren't accusations, Mr. Fletcher. They're documented financial irregularities that require explanation." Another board member, Henry Wilson, laughed. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? This airport is vital to national infrastructure. We have friends in every government department." "Including the Treasury?" Emma asked quietly. The room fell silent again. "I think we've heard enough," Director Blackwood said coldly. "This meeting is over. We'll be contacting your superiors about this unprofessional behavior." 2 hours later, Emma was sitting at her desk when 2 security guards entered her small office. "Ms. Clark, we need you to pack your things and come with us," said the taller guard. "Director's orders." "On what grounds?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. "Security breach. Unauthorized access of private files." Emma carefully packed her laptop and papers. The guards watched her closely, then took her notebook and several files. "Those are Treasury Department property," Emma protested. "They'll be returned after review," the guard said, not meeting her eyes. Emma reached for her scarf on the back of the chair, wrapping it carefully around her neck. The flash drive Lucy had given her was hidden in a small pocket sewn into the fabric. The guards never noticed. They escorted her through the building, past staring employees and out to the front entrance. The rain had returned, falling steadily as Emma walked to her rental car. She felt eyes watching her from the windows above. Back in her hotel room, Emma called her supervisor at the Treasury Department. Robert Mills had always supported her work in the past. "Robert, they threw me out," she explained, pacing the small room. "But I have solid evidence of fraud. They're misusing billions in relief funds." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Emma," Robert finally said, his voice unnaturally careful, "I got a call from the airport board chairman an hour ago, and then another call from the minister's office." Emma's stomach tightened. "And? These are powerful people with serious political connections," Robert said quietly. "Maybe we should reassign this case. Give it to someone with more political experience." You mean someone white? Emma asked bluntly. Robert sighed. I didn't say that. After hanging up, Emma sat on the edge of the hotel bed, feeling suddenly very alone. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? She answered. Drop this investigation if you know what's good for your career, said a man's voice she didn't recognize. The call ended before she could respond. Emma felt the weight of doubt pressing down on her. Maybe she should walk away. The airport executives clearly had friends in high places. Fighting them could end her career before it really began. She picked up her phone again and scrolled to a photo she kept there. Her grandmother in her cleaning uniform, standing proudly outside the office building where she had worked nights for 20 years. After Emma's grandfather died suddenly, Grandma Mary had raised 3 children alone while cleaning office buildings at night. She never complained, never gave up, and never compromised her values. A clerk stands up for what's right, no matter the cost, her grandmother used to say. Emma touched the screen gently. I won't back down, she whispered, drawing strength from the woman who had taught her that integrity mattered above all else. She reached for her scarf and carefully removed Lucy's flash drive. It was time to make copies of the evidence and start building her case outside the airport's reach. Emma worked quickly from her hotel room. She knew she needed help to fight the powerful people at Heathrow Airport. First, she called her old mentor from the Treasury Department, James Harrington. He had taught Emma everything about financial investigations when she first joined. This is serious, Emma, James said after she explained the situation. These people have friends in high places. But if what you've found is true, we need to stop them. Next, Emma contacted Lucy. They agreed to meet somewhere safe, away from the airport. Lucy was taking a huge risk by continuing to help. Emma's third call was to Oliver Bennett, a journalist friend who worked for The Guardian. She had helped him with information for stories in the past. I can't promise anything, Oliver warned. But if your evidence is solid, we can help get the truth out. The next day, they all met at a small cafe in central London, far from the airport. The cafe was nearly empty, with just an elderly couple in the corner. Emma chose a table at the Saam, back away from windows. James arrived first, then Lucy, looking nervous but determined. Oliver came last, carrying his laptop bag. Thank you all for coming, Emma said quietly. What's happening at the airport is wrong, and we need to stop it. She showed them the evidence from Lucy's flash drive. Documents proving that money meant for workers was instead paying for luxury offices and executive bonuses. This is even worse than I thought, James said, reviewing the files. They've broken at least 6 different financial regulations. Oliver whistled softly. This is a massive story. Emma took a deep breath. I've made a decision. I'm using my Treasury authority to freeze access to the remaining relief funds. The others looked surprised. Can you do that? Lucy asked. Yes, James answered for Emma. In cases of suspected fraud, Treasury investigators have emergency powers to protect public money. It's a big step, Emma admitted, but it's necessary. That afternoon, Emma submitted the official paperwork. The effect was immediate and dramatic. By the next morning, airport operations faced disruption as planned projects suddenly lost funding. The local papers ran headlines questioning Emma's actions. The Evening Standard called her a bureaucratic troublemaker, causing unnecessary problems. The airport's PR team worked hard to paint Emma as inexperienced and reckless. But things began to change when airport employees started speaking out. A baggage handler named Bill spoke to reporters outside the airport gates. I've worked at this airport for 15 years, he said angrily. During COVID, they told us to take pay cuts because money was tight. We all made sacrifices. Then I find out they were remodeling their offices with marble floors and fancy artwork. It's not right. More workers came forward with stories. Cleaning, staff who lost jobs while executives got bonuses, security guards who didn't receive promised hazard pay during the pandemic. 3 days after freezing the funds, Oliver published his first story in The Guardian. He didn't reveal his sources, but the article included key documents showing the financial fraud. Other newspapers picked up the story. Public opinion began to shift. Airport executives accused of stealing COVID relief funds read the headlines. The airport board fought back hard. They held press conferences claiming Emma was politically motivated. Anonymous comments appeared online, attacking Emma's qualifications and character. "Just another diversity hire causing trouble," read one comment. "She doesn't understand how airports work," said another. The threats became more serious. One night Emma noticed a car following her back to her hotel. She took a longer route and managed to lose it in traffic. The next morning she found her rental car's tire slashed. A note was stuck under the windshield wiper. "Go home." Emma called James immediately. "They're trying to scare me off," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Do you want police protection?" James asked, concerned. Emma thought about it. "No, that might make people think I'm afraid. I'm not backing down." Through the difficult days that followed, Emma remembered her grandmother's words. "When you stand for what's right, you never stand alone." And her grandmother was right. More. Airport workers came forward each day with new information. Another accountant secretly confirmed Lucy's documents. A former board member called Emma with additional evidence of wrongdoing. Even Robert, her supervisor, who had been hesitant at first, called to offer his support. "The Treasury Minister reviewed your evidence," he told Emma. "He's backing your decision to freeze the funds." Emma smiled as she hung up the phone. The truth was coming out, one brave person at a time. The fight wasn't over, but she was no longer fighting alone. The final audit report arrived on Emma's desk on a bright Monday morning. The thick document confirmed everything she had suspected and revealed even darker secrets. The Treasury Department's full investigation had taken 3 months, with 5 senior auditors working full-time. What they found shocked even Emma. "My God," Emma whispered as she read through the findings. The corruption went far beyond the airport. City government officials had received kickbacks for approving false contracts. Relief money had been funneled through fake companies owned by board members' relatives. In total, over $800 million had been misused. The news broke across all major channels that evening. The BBC, Sky News, and every newspaper covered the story. Emma watched from her hotel room as Director Blackwood was shown leaving the airport building, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. His face was grey, his eyes fixed on the ground. Behind him, 2 police officers waited patiently. "Airport Director Thomas Blackwood has resigned today following devastating fraud allegations," the reporter announced. "Sources confirm he may face criminal charges, along with 3 board members." Emma's phone rang constantly with calls from journalists seeking comments. She referred them all to the Treasury Department's press office. This wasn't about her, it was about justice and proper use of public money. The next morning, the Treasury Minister announced a press conference to introduce new leadership and accountability measures for the airport. Emma was asked to attend and speak briefly about the investigation. The large conference room was packed with journalists, government officials, and airport workers. Emma felt nervous as she approached the podium, but when she looked out at the faces watching her, she stood taller. Many of the airport workers nodded encouragingly. Lucy sat in the front row, smiling proudly. "Today marks a new beginning," Emma said, her voice steady and clear. "Not just for this airport, but for how we ensure public funds truly serve the public." She explained the new oversight systems being put in place and the commitment to transparency in all financial dealings. After the press conference, the Treasury Minister took Emma aside. "Remarkable work, Ms. Clark," he said warmly. "We're creating a new division focused on equity and federal funding distribution. We'd like you to lead it." Emma felt a rush of pride, but she had one condition. "I'd like Lucy Thompson to join my team." Her courage made this investigation possible. Of course, the minister agreed immediately. Whistleblowers like her deserve recognition, not punishment. 6 months passed. The new division was up and running, with Emma leading a diverse team of 15 investigators. They had already uncovered similar fraud schemes at 2 other major infrastructure projects, saving millions in public funds. Emma visited Heathrow Airport again on a cool autumn day. The atmosphere had changed completely. Workers greeted her with smiles and nods of respect as she walked through the terminals. Many had been rehired after losing their jobs unfairly. The new director, Patricia Wilson, had implemented transparent financial practices throughout the organization. Emma stood by the large windows, watching planes take off into the cloudy London sky. The airport was running smoothly again, with proper funding going where it should. Employee morale had improved dramatically under the new leadership. An older woman in a cleaner's uniform approached Emma. She had kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Excuse me," the woman said softly. "Are you Emma Clark, the Treasury investigator?" Emma nodded, surprised to be recognized. "I wanted to thank you," the woman continued, taking Emma's hand in her weathered ones. "My grandson got his job back. Because of what you did. He's a security officer here, 10 years of service before they let him go. Now he's back with proper pay too." The woman's eyes shone with tears. "Sometimes it just takes one person brave enough to stand up, doesn't it?" Emma smiled, thinking of her grandmother's photo still tucked in her wallet. The woman who had cleaned office buildings at night while raising 3 children alone had taught Emma everything about courage and integrity. "We never stand alone," Emma replied gently, "when we stand for what's right." As she left the airport that day, Emma noticed Director Blackwood's old office. The expensive renovations had been removed, replaced by a simple workspace now shared by 3 department heads. A small plaque on the wall caught her eye. "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." Emma smiled. That was a lesson worth remembering.